Well, hello, everybody. My name is John Casbaro. I'm president of Learning for Success. And in this video, we're talking to Alina Sosa Perez about social emotional learning and how it relates to our lessons with Kapow and My Future Is Now. We're going to examine one of our lessons, that's goals and objectives. We're going to look at extensions, they're called, which are some brief questions that particularly deal with the social emotional learning aspects of that lesson, why they're important, and how you can use them. So first, let's talk to Alina and ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, John, thank you for having me here today. I am a licensed psychotherapist. I have been in the field for a long time, and now I have been in my own private practice for the last 5 years. I have an office in Aventura, and I also do virtual sessions. I am also a life coach and a consultant with corporations on health and well-being of employees. I love to share this. I love to share in the community and see how we can be of help to the kids growing up in our community. So it's good to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Lena, what is social emotional learning and why is it important right now more than ever?
Social emotional learning is about really looking at our goals, our empathy, our ability to cope. And there's certain components that it entails. It entails self-awareness, it entails self-management, it entails positive relationships, good decision making, and social learning. So it's got the components that help kids and people in general be able to move forward in learning beyond the didactic model. Our schools have been really set up to be teaching about math, English, history, but there's been a lack of maybe preparation to prepare our kids to become functional, healthy, successful adults. And I think one of the things that social emotional learning targets is the ability to grow in these aspects through inclusion of this in our curriculum. So it's quite necessary.
Well, it's certainly something that our teachers and administrators would agree with now. We had a focus group this last summer with several of our teachers and administrators, and when we asked them what's happened in the last couple of years that has affected your teaching and learning the most, and the very first thing that they mentioned was social emotional learning, well, or the mental health state of the students, and how this has become such a challenge for them to bring them back from the pandemic, where many of them were shut in for a year or a year and a half. And that really, it's not like that the issue didn't exist before the pandemic, right, Alina?
Right, of
But
course.
but
So,
certainly the pandemic exacerbated the issue. You want to
yeah,
comment on that?
yes, definitely it is shown that post-pandemic stress has skyrocketed. We're showing it a lot with the young adults. Kids in school too are having a lot more anxiety, a lot more insecurity. And it's not only the kids, it's the system. Here we are, the kids were with the parents. The parents have to face a lot of stressors as well as teaching the
Yeah.
kids in school at home. So it was a very stressful time. Not only was it stressful, but then they also missed certain probably milestones that they needed to connect to
Yeah.
in terms of social learning. And because of the isolation, they really were not able to meet those milestones. So
That's what.
that has
Yeah.
affected that. Mhm.
That's what they were saying. It just the basic relationship building between the kids, was lacking in a way that it wasn't so much previously. So it just it changed things.
Yeah, and it's good that it changed things because I think our schools need this. Our kids need this. Our kids need, like I say, to be prepared socially, emotionally. It's just as or more important, I would say, than math. I mean, not that. I mean, I love math, and of course, science could not be without math. Okay, we don't get me wrong. It's an extremely important topic, but it's just as important. or even more, because that's the vehicle that makes kids be able to implement what they learn, their social emotional health.
Well, as it affects their attitudes, for instance, you can hear that from employers. When you talk to employers and ask them what are the main reasons that incoming employees, first-time employees fail, they don't necessarily point to their knowledge of specific skills, but more about their social emotional health, their attitude, their ability to get along with others.
Exactly.
These are the issues that employers are talking about right now as
Exactly.
well.
Exactly.
So we've got to start somewhere, and starting with the schools. So what happened then with us as we after we talked with our teachers and administrators, and they told us how important this was an issue. We took a look at our lessons, and then we also took a look at the actual standards that the school districts use that have to do with social emotional learning, and we saw some absolute parallels, alignment, if you will, with our lessons. When you looked at those standards, they talk about relationship building, they talk about communication, they talk about self-awareness, and that's actually the titles of some of our lessons. We have a lesson that's titled self-awareness. We have a lesson that's titled communication, and we have a lesson that's titled decision making. So we said, okay, well, if that's the case, and we're just discovering this in a way that we have this alignment, what can we do to make this more clear and provide a vehicle for our lessons to be utilized in this fashion? So what we did was we developed some specific questions that relate to every lesson, and we put them on our website. So what we wanted to do with you today is to take a look at just one of our lessons, examine the goals and objectives, and then look at the questions that we have put forth as extensions that have to do with social emotional learning, and see how can someone use these. So let me share my screen right now, and we'll talk about those. Okay, so the first lesson in our elementary school Kapow curriculum is called Job and Career Awareness, and its goals are right there: to understand that work skills needs for people in the community, to learn how that people can do many different kinds of work, to show that being good at a job means using skills that you've learned at school and your special talents, and to see what learning helps prepare people for work. The lesson introduces the volunteer that we have for the first time, and so the students get to interview the volunteer and talk to them about their job. But now, as we want to do with every lesson, we want the students to be able to relate where they're at right now with and try to see themselves in the future in a job like this person has. And so and what does it take to get there? So for this lesson, we developed special questions that are on our website, and I'll show you before we leave how to get there to these questions. And so if the lesson's goal, Alina, is for kids to discover the world of work, to learn about the volunteer and what skills and abilities they use, and what skills and abilities they could be learning in school to get a job like that, we have these two questions that we've developed. And if you can see, everybody, that we've taken the standards, and I'll highlight these from right now, and for each of the lessons, and then we from those standards we've come up with specific questions that we can ask that have to deal with social emotional learning. So I'm going to pose these questions for you, Alina, and ask you to comment on them, and what can we accomplish by asking these kinds of questions. So the first one is, how can my attitude help me be good at my job? What does that have to do with social emotional learning, and why is that important?
Well, attitude is probably 80% of what we do in life, has to do with what kind of attitude we have in terms of our success. To start grooming kids with the understanding that It is self-accountability in a way. It is about being present, being able to do your best, be the best version of yourself. Is, I think, what we're grooming with that question is to start letting that child know that there is a choice, that one can have an attitude that can bring about a great success or not. And that connect is huge, because if we can teach that at an early age, then I think a lot of that, a sense of lack of power, will be corrected, because this is very empowering for kids to understand, hey, I can choose to change my attitude, I can choose to make something different of my attitude and behavior, and to give it to them at such an early age. It's a great way to prepare them to succeed. So it's, the outcome is amazing. I think it's a genial kind of way to start.
I like how you said it's their choice.
Mhm.
They can choose what their attitude is, and they can choose to have the kind of behavior that is going to create a success or not. So that leads us to the next question. What are some examples of good behavior when you relate to others? Again, this is a question that the volunteer or the teacher could be asking the students during this lesson or after this lesson as a follow-up. What are some examples of good behavior when you relate to others? What can we accomplish with this question, Alina?
Well, I think this question opens up the connection to others. So there's got to be the connection to self, the self-awareness, and then, as one of the competencies shows, positive relationships. So in order to be able to understand how you relate to others, and whether it's activities or play, and this can be brought forth in school, it's a great way to understand that it's not just about me. It's about me in relationship to the community. It's about me in relationship to my work. It's about me in relationship to other humans. And I hate to sound corny, but we really need to grow in that. That's part of what our world is facing, and even our young kids are clamoring about, is how can we become uh more in tune with our humanity, more in tune with our connection to others. And I think that's extremely important to succeed.
Oh, great. And teachers, notice now then, where did these questions come from? These are the actual standards that the school districts use regarding social emotional learning. So, just like the state standards that you use for all of the subjects, they have, a number and a letter that corresponds to these standards. And so the two standards that we saw that corresponded to lesson one were analyzed how one's behavior may affect others, and analyze how making use of school and community supports and how opportunities can contribute to school and life success. So each lesson, as I scroll down, then what you'll see, and again, I'll show you where to find this on our website, is that for each lesson, you'll see the standards that social emotional learning standards that pertain to that lesson, and the specific questions that you as a teacher or volunteers that you as a volunteer can ask during the lesson or after the lesson, or even before the lesson, because in our lessons we have teachers, you are aware that we have a teacher activity that you conduct before the volunteers come. So at any time, these questions can be utilized and become important. So,
And John, I like to
yes.
add that they're very thought-provoking, even though they're brief questions. The amount of information that can come out of this is amazing, because the kids can ask questions, they can go on, and the teachers can clarify. So it's a very opening. It's what we call in my field open questions that can be used to get more information and keep working on the theme.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. Actually, is what outcomes then are we looking for here? I mean, what can we accomplish by asking these questions and getting into these kinds of discussions?
Well, I think you start with opening it up and making it come into your mind. It's a thought-provoking kind of thing. And because it's something that maybe kids usually get to talk about this maybe when they're in high school and not when they're in elementary. I think the fact that they're starting, and even though there's teacher and parents come to visit, is bring your child to school day and all that. This brings it a step further. It brings it a step into, we're going to learn this in the class. We're going to really explore what this means to me as a child, to start learning to become an adept in this society and in being successful. And I think that's the whole point of it. It prepares the child. It opens the door to those kinds of questions and those concerns that are usually not talked about until very much later in our lives.
Well, thank you for that, and that is a very good way to summarize what our intentions were here, and why we thought this was important to add as a component to our Kapow lessons. So, where can you find these, everyone? If you go onto our website, kapowlfs.com, and by the way, we're going to post this video to our YouTube channel, and we'll send you the link, including the instructions for everything that I'm saying right now. But when you, what it'll say is when you go onto our website, kapowlfs.com, and you go to the tab that says Kids in the Power of Work and Kapow Curriculum, this is the page that you'll get to. And when you scroll down, you will see SEL Extension Questions and Standards. We have a set of questions that pertain to grade 2, and then another set that pertains to grades 3 through 5, and that's the ones that we were looking at with Alina this afternoon. So for every lesson, again, we have these questions, and they're all here, and just by clicking on that link, you can get to them. So we want to say, I'm going to stop sharing for right now, and say we want to thank you again, Alina Sosa Perez, for being the expert that we needed to explain the importance of social emotional learning and how we've been able to, what its importance is and how to incorporate this into our lessons. Do you have some conclusions that you want to offer now?
Yes, I think the time has come when we start doing this more and more in our school system. I think we cannot expect to teach the same way always. We have to evolve with the times. We have to evolve. Our children are very much facing a different world in the future, where that touch of humanity is going to make a difference, I think, in their being able to succeed versus someone that doesn't get prepared in that way. So I believe that this concept and this idea that is being implemented is probably one of the most impactful ideas to help children grow into healthy, mentally healthy adults.
Thank you so much again for joining us today and offering your experience and your expertise with us. We want to say hello and goodbye again to all of our teachers and volunteers and people listening in and looking in on this video. And we'll be sending it, as I said, we'll be sending out the link to our this video as it's published on our YouTube channel with the instructions about how to get to this place on our website to access all of this. So thank you again for joining us today, and we'll be talking again soon.